Chapter 1 Summary, Down the Rabbit Hole. Alice sits with her sister, bored and sleepy, when she notices a white rabbit rushing by. Unusual not because it talks, but because it pulls a watch from its waistcoat pocket. Curious, Alice follows it across a field and watches it disappear into a rabbit hole. Without thinking, she jumps in after it. The fool. Alice falls down a deep well, slowly enough to observe cupboards, shelves, maps, and jars labeled orange marmalade. She wonders about geography, the center of the earth, and whether she might fall through to the Antipodes, her mistaken version of Antipodes. She drifts into a dreamy state, thinking about her cat Dinah, until she lands safely on a heap of sticks and leaves. The Hall of Doors. Alice chases the rabbit down a passage, but loses sight of it. She finds herself in a long hall full of locked doors. On a glass table sits a tiny golden key, which eventually opens a very small door leading to a beautiful garden, but she's far too big to fit through. The Drink Me bottle. Alice discovers a bottle labeled Drink Me. She checks to make sure it isn't poison, then drinks it. The liquid tastes like cherry tart, custard, pineapple, roast turkey, toffee, and hot matcha toast. She shrinks to 10 inches tall, the perfect size to enter the garden, but realizes she left the key on the table and can't reach it anymore. The Eat Me cake. She finds a small cake labeled Eat Me, hoping it will change her size again. She eats it. Of course, nothing happens, but by the end of the chapter, she begins growing rapidly, setting up the next chapter's chaos. And because Alice's Adventures in Wonderland is public domain, summarizing is fully allowed. Now more than 9 feet tall, Alice grows enormously tall. The chapter opens with Alice suddenly shooting upward like a telescope after eating the Eat Me cake. Her feet seem impossibly far away, and she jokes about sending them Christmas presents because she'll never reach them again. Her head soon hits the ceiling of the hall, forcing her to bend awkwardly. She tries again to reach the garden. Now more than 9 feet tall, Alice grabs the golden key and goes to the tiny door. But she still can't fit. Overwhelmed, she begins to cry. And because she's so huge, her tears form a massive pool around her. The white rabbit returns. The rabbit reappears, dressed elegantly and muttering about the Duchess. Alice timidly tries to speak to him, but he panics, drops his gloves and fan, and runs away. Alice picks them up and begins fanning herself, not realizing the fan is magical. Alice shrinks again. As she fans herself, she rapidly shrinks down to a tiny size. She drops the fan just in time to avoid disappearing entirely. But now she's too small to reach the key again, and the door has shut. She falls into her own pool of tears. Her foot slips and she splashes into the salty water, the very pool created by her earlier crying. She swims, confused, thinking she might have fallen into the sea. She meets the mouse. A mouse sits swimming nearby. Alice tries speaking to it politely, then tries French, "Où est ma chatte?" which terrifies the mouse because she mentioned a cat. She apologizes and tries talking about dogs instead, which also offends the mouse. A crowd gathers. More creatures fall into the pool. A duck, a dodo, a lorry, an eaglet, and others. They all swim together toward the shore, setting up the next chapter's chaotic caucus race. A caucus race and a long tail. The soggy crowd on the bank. Alice, the mouse, and all the creatures who fell into the pool of tears climb onto the riverbank. Everyone is soaked, grumpy, and uncomfortable. Their first problem, how to get dry. The mouse's dry history lesson. The mouse insists it knows the driest thing possible. A long, dull history lecture about William the Conqueror. It begins reciting it with great seriousness, but the birds interrupt with complaints. Alice listens politely, but the lecture doesn't dry anyone. The dodo proposes a caucus race. The dodo decides they need more energetic remedies and announces a caucus race. This race has no starting line, no ending line, no rules, and everyone runs whenever they want. After about half an hour, the dodo declares, "The race is over." Everyone asks who won. The dodo thinks deeply, then announces, "Everybody has won and all must have prizes." Alice gives out prizes. Alice, confused, checks her pocket and finds a box of comfits, candies. She hands them out, one to each creature. They insist Alice must also receive a prize, so the dodo solemnly presents her with her own thimble, as if it were a grand award. The mouse is long and sad tail. The group asks the mouse to continue its story. The mouse says it has a long and sad tail, which Alice misunderstands as referring to its tail, imagining a winding shape. This annoys the mouse, who becomes offended and storms off. Alice accidentally scares everyone away. Trying to make conversation, Alice mentions her cat Dinah, who's excellent catching mice and birds. This horrifies the creatures. Birds flee, a magpie wraps up and leaves, and the conjury gathers its children and runs. Soon Alice is left completely alone again, wishing she hadn't mentioned Dinah.